So with that, everyone, really glad that you're here. We're going to be talking a bit today about the number one question that retailers and licensors and investors have about your product and how to answer it, okay? So before we jump into that, I just want to take a sec and introduce myself. I'm Amy Wenslow. We do this product business show every other Monday at 11 a.m. every time, Pacific Standard Time. Would love to have more people on these, so if you know people that it can help, please forward the information to them. You know what, I think we're gonna put out an email that's a really easy thing for you to forward. How about we do that? That seems helpful. So just making a quick note here. That's one of the key things to do as a business person. As you think of things, write it down. Forwardable email with info. Okay. So these calls are our service to you, and we have them open to clients as well as people that are considering becoming clients and people that are new to the process in any capacity. So they are open to everybody, and I really appreciate the help in spreading the word. So I see we've got even more coming into Facebook. Hi there, everybody. So with that, these calls would be considered public disclosure of an invention. So if you are inventing something and you want to file for patent rights, but you haven't yet, when you ask your question, please hold back the special secret something, because I want to make sure that you would still have the rights to file, okay? So with all that said, let's dive right in. Our background here at Products to Profits includes over 20 years in consumer goods product development and sales and marketing to large volume, large companies, and we love to help startup businesses get moving in that direction. So there's a really interesting thing that happened for anybody who was watching the news the past 2 weeks. Where it comes to retail, Amazon's made a bid for Whole Foods. So it's a really kind of interesting thing. People are asking, well, why would an online platform want to have an offline store? Well, it goes to what we were talking about e-commerce last time. That still e-commerce conservative estimates are that it accounts for about 10% of sales. That means 90% of sales are being done offline, okay? So with that said, this is a really important question, the one that we're going to talk about today, of how do you answer retail buyers or companies that you want to license to or investors that you want to bring on when they ask you this question: why should I buy, license, or invest in your product? Why should I do it? That's always the question. It may sound a little bit different. It may come in a whole set of questions. They may directly say it, or they may never say it at all, but that is actually the question you have to answer all the time, okay? So we're gonna break this down into categories. I'm gonna go over retailers, people you license to, and investors in sequence and give you kind of the points that you have to hit, okay? There aren't a ton of them, but you gotta hit them confidently, and you have to be accurate and put the best face on it that you can and know that you can back up your numbers. Okay, so contextually, when you're answering this question of why should I buy, invest, or license your product, you have to answer this with a sense of confidence instead of, well, I think it'd be a good fit because, well, it's a really great product. That's not going to get you the sale. It's not going to get you the investment check, okay? So that said, here's what you got to do, all right? With retailers, okay? Retailers are all about dollars per square foot. So you're going to talk about, number one, the fit to their customer base. You know, that the customer for your product is already in their stores. The retailer has nothing close to compete with it, or why you are better than what they're already carrying, okay? And a retail buyer is already emotionally invested in the fact that they made the right decision when they bought your competitor's product, okay? So you have to give them overwhelming evidence of how yours is better, different, going to extend the dollars, okay? So it's a really important question. Retailers may or may not ask it straight up. Why should I buy your product? Or, well, why should we change from who we're already buying from? Those kinds of questions are the same, okay? So talk about fit to their customer base, how it's different from what they're already carrying. Most importantly, talk profit margin and turns. Turns are how many times a product can sell in a week, a month, a year. It depends on how they're asking you the question, okay? But turns are really important because it's how quickly do the inventory dollars that they invest in your product, how quickly do those inventory dollars pay off and move forward, okay? One point about working with a retailer or talking to them about this question, tread very carefully about mentioning other retailers that you're selling to, okay? You don't know if they have a hot button about that retailer or if they're gonna say, well, we don't want you to sell on XYZ sales channel while you're selling to us. So you may have to tread a little carefully with that. So think that part through before you go into the meeting. You try not to think on your feet about that one. Have a little bit of forethought on it before you just blurt out an answer, okay? So that's for the retailers. You've got talk about fit to their customer base, talk about profit margin and turns, talk about your other retailers very carefully. Okay, now notice I didn't say with the retailers, go on and 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 on about the features and benefits of your product. Everything I mentioned was more in what is the business model of the product, okay? So you keep that in mind. This is a business decision for them. It's not about your product is amazing and awesome and we're just gonna go for it, okay? So it's a really important thing to work through some of your numbers and how it's a benefit to them. The second group of people that are going to ask you this question, if you are licensing your product, is the person you're licensing to, okay? So they'll ask the why should I license your product in a couple of variations, but that's, again, a core question. You want to talk about the overall market size, where you think that X units can be sold in the US, or, well, globally the market is this. Global is a little bit of a tough issue because they're not going to go global right away. So you want to kind of keep it a little tailored. So you're going to talk about market size, number of units that you could expect that they would sell. Also mention that it's a line extension for them. If it is, that means related to a product they already sell, but it's the next step, which will give them, this is another point to talk about, that they can make more sales with the customers and contacts that they already have, okay? So they can increase their sales by making more sales to existing customers, if that's true. It's not always going to be so you actually have to pay attention when you are talking about that. If you already have impressive sales numbers, right, or you've already made sales, you can mention those. It will help you if you're licensing. It'll help you get a bit more royalty if your sales numbers are solidly good or too impressive, okay? If your sales numbers are really kind of crappy, try not to mention them. There you go. There's the technical definition. If they're kind of crappy. What that number is will vary depending on what the product is and how long you've been out in sales, okay? So if you have impressive sales, definitely mention them. If you have okay sales, you can mention them, but know that it'll affect the royalty that you may ultimately get. So the licensors, their version of why should I license your product, they're looking for, well, how much money could they make? Is it a good fit with the customer base they already sell to, okay? And they'll look at worldwide market, or how much of the market could they get from you. So is it exclusive? Is it just for the US as far as this license? So there's a lot of different nuances in there, but the basic ones are market size in their approachable market. Is it a line extension for them? Does it have sales so far that they can make more sales from contacts they have and the number of units they could expect to sell? okay? So if you can give them those kinds of pieces, it'll really reinforce your why should they license it? Why should they bother? Okay? You don't have to have all those numbers, but it will help you make more in your royalty if you can talk business with them in a really credible way. So let me just peek at the notes here. Okay. Third group, investors. Investors will ask this all the time because they're going to take their hard-earned dollars and they're going to give them to somebody called you and your team, and they're expecting some sort of return, meaning that they're going to make money as maybe interest if it's a convertible note, or that they're going to make money when the value of your business increases, okay? So they're going to want to know about what's the approachable market size. So there's the global market, that's one thing, and then there's the US market, that's another, and then there's what is called approachable market size. That is, what's the market size that you can reasonably get to? Okay, that is, like really who are you going to be selling to? All right. The problem that the product solves will be important to them. And one of the main things that will have an investor come in is the team. If there's a proven track record with your team, it's a very big deal. So, for example, our clients, a lot of them use our background to help when they're looking for investors, because we worked on a line that did $300 million in sales in 3 years. We've done things that have done a first order at $1.78 million. We have other companies where we've done turnaround and it goes from $1 million account to a $2 million account. All different kinds of pieces that our clients can use to shore up their business plan and say, well, one of the people that's advising us and working with us has done this and this and this. Team is critical to an investor when the why should they invest in your product, because an investor typically, across all the investor panels I've been on, all the investor groups that we're with, they will look at a good product with a great team more favorably than a great product with no team. Okay, so you have to understand that. Team is really important because a good team can improve your product. A good team can move it across the finish line. A good team will pick up slack for each other when commitment waivers or energy waivers or something difficult comes along. They'll have the ability to get around it and over the obstacle. A single person, one big upset takes you out of the game. So team is one of the critical things you want to talk about with an investor. And they ask, why should I invest in your product? We have a really great team that's done this and this. The product is solving this problem. That's another element. So the problem your product solves. And you want to talk about expected revenue in the 2 to 3 year range as a first benchmark, and then further down the road, if you can give them a 5 year. And then you're also going to want to talk about what's the exit plan, meaning how are they going to get paid out on this business. So the things in not in particular order are the approachable market size, the problem your product solves, the team, okay, really important to talk about your team. The expected revenue is the other one, okay? There was one other piece that we had that I added. Expected revenue, team, market size. It'll come back to me. It's in what I said previously, so pay attention to that. With that, I'm going to open up the phone line for some questions. We've got a little bit of time left here. So if you're on Facebook Live, I am watching the feed there, so you can just type your question in and it'll pop up on my screen. If you're on the phone line, just press *2 and that'll raise your hand to let me know that you've got something you want to ask specifically about. And if you're on the webcast, you should be able to just type it in a chat window. So, who's got a question? Okay, we've got somebody whose phone number ends in 4248. Hi there, this is Amy. What's your name and what's your question?
Hi, Amy. It's Kate Reed from Denver. Hello.
Hey, Kate. Hello.
Hi, Amy. Thanks again for your great conversation today. I am talking with a distributor this week, and I was wondering, what would be your number one piece of advice to
Okay, for distributors, it's going to be kind of like the retailers, okay? So it's going to be, it's a combination actually when you're dealing with a distributor. You're going to talk about it being a line extension, which is in the licensor kind of column, right? So you could talk about line extension for them, that they can make more contacts from existing, more sales from existing contacts, right? And if you've made impressive sales so far, you would mention those. And you're going to talk about fit to their customer base. Their customer base, though, is retailers and is websites, etc. So it's not end consumer customer base. Does that make sense?
Yes.
There's also going to want to talk profit margin and turns. You know, like how quickly could they expect to see things moving? But profit margin is really the more important one out of those two. Okay?
Okay. Terrific.
You might also want to talk with them about marketing support. Like if you have brochures that you're going to supply to them, or you're willing to go out on meetings with them. Those pieces.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Perfect.
Sure.
That's great.
Yeah, that's the short, concise answer for you, okay?
Love it. Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome. You've been on my heart and mind the past few days. Have you on a call list for tomorrow, so I was going to reach out.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So we should get a meeting set if you'd like. We can go over this specifically. Just for everybody, Kate's one of our consulting clients. So Kate, if you want that, just send an email over to Troy, okay?
Sounds great.
Cool.
Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome. I'm going to mute your line for your privacy. Who else has a question about this? Like you're wondering what to talk with people about. I see we've got Sue from Boston on the line. And Sue, I know the investor piece is really important to you. So let me just recap it for you, okay? With investors, you want to talk about the problem the product is solving. You've got a great, compelling product that yours is solving. You also want to talk about team. So that's a really important piece. Previous track record of your team. If they've done some stuff that's good, talk about it. And you want to talk about the approachable market size. So Sue, for yours, it's not about everybody who has a child or everybody who has a couple other items that I don't want to mention here. It's really how many could you expect to sell? How many people would you realistically expect to move to buy your product, okay? And then you would talk about expected revenues. And we could definitely have a conversation around that when you're ready. Let's see, what else for Sue? I'm just glancing over at my notes. No, that's pretty much it. So who else has a question? On the phone lines, press *2 to raise your hand. On Facebook Live, just type it in. And the webcast looks pretty quiet today, so that's awesome. I see we've got Anitra. Anitra, are you clear about this? Let's see if... There we go, swipe left for comments. Cool. Let's see, I see we've got one question coming in. Okay. All right. Okay, so this question is, how do I figure out what you're calling approachable market size? It's a really good question. Approachable market size is the entire market, and then you subtract out what you don't think you're ever going to be able to get. So for example, if you say to an investor that everybody needs your product, they're going to roll their eyes. Like, it's just not true, for one thing. It's not true that you're like, everybody's going to buy this, everybody's going to want this. Even with Apple's budget, they don't have everybody buying their iPhone, you know? And not even everybody has a smartphone yet. I think the smartphone statistics are still that, you know, only about 50% of the cell phone accounts have data plans. So that would point to about 50% of the phones being smartphones. So think about that. And that's with Apple and Android and everybody else in the market. So you're not going to get everybody to buy your thing. So don't say it. approachable market is what you can realistically expect, okay? You would look at what are the most likely sales channels for your product. If you are saying, well, we're going to sell on infomercial, you might look for statistics on how many purchases happen on infomercial or how many active infomercial consumers there are. All right. So approachable market size comes down to how many can you really address? What's the real statistic? And it takes some thought and some consideration and some honesty with yourself before you can actually speak it to an investor. So hopefully that helps you. Let's see. Cool. Anitra. So, all right. Yes, I'm clear. And she's always curious about ways to get in front of retailers outside of trade shows. There's a ton of ways. If you want to sell to Whole Foods, for example, you can walk into Whole Foods and talk to the category manager for that store. It depends on your product. And so, Anitra, since I know yours, for everybody, Anitra's been a client of us and of ours. So for yours, you can actually just walk in and talk to people. You can also ask for the regional buyer contacts, and we actually have a commitment to you to pull 10 contacts out of our database for you. So we need to have a conversation with you about who you want those to be, what type of retailers, and we will give you some names and phone numbers, okay? So that's a really good way to get in front of retailers outside of trade shows. Also, if you're a woman-owned business, I want you to consider getting WeBank certified. So WeBank is WBENC, and I think it's a .org. If you get Women Business Certified, then you can actually have your product purchased through a women-owned business program with a lot of retailers. So depending on the retailer, they may have that program set up. It can be a very good way to go in because it gives them a reason to purchase from you, in addition to the fact that your product is really good, because they have certain percentages and numbers that they want to hit. So those programs are for minority-owned businesses as well. The minority-owned business certification is different. You would not go through WeBank. There is a U.S. Department of Commerce office for minority-owned businesses. So I'm not sure the whole process because we haven't gone through that, obviously, but WeBank would be very good, and it's not that crazy expensive if you think that it would be helpful to you. And they actually set up meetings with supplier diversity program directors, and that's the name of the type of program that you would sell your product to a retailer under, is a supplier diversity person. So with that, let's see. So Anitra, there are a couple ideas for you. Send a list over. Anitra, since you're a client, send a list over to us and we'll pull some contacts for you. Tell us the type of retailer that you want, the type of position that you want it to the person to have, and we'll do that. So let's see, I see we've got another question from Massachusetts. I think this is Sue. Hey Sue, hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so excited to hear your voice.
Oh, me too.
What's your...
I just had a question about the WeBank. Am I there yet? Am I able to be certified?
Yeah, you could start the process. WeBank certification takes a few months. It does, I think it's about $500 if I remember right. And I think it takes 3 or 4 months. We're in the process. We're just starting it, so I can give everybody a little more detail about that. One of my friends is on the board for WeBank here in Southern California, so I'll talk to her about that today, okay?
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure. I think it would be really good for you to do. Okay?
I will. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. It puts you under their supplier diversity program, which gives you a leg up in some respects, okay?
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I have another contact.
Nice to talk to you, Amy.
I have another contact that will be very good for you once we get a few of the tech issues figured out, okay?
Oh, good. Thank you very much.
I've been making notes and accumulating them for you. It's all good, okay?
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to mute your line for your privacy. We'll talk soon, all right?
All right. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so one last question, if anybody's got one. If you're on the phone line, it's press *2. That'll raise your hand. If you're on Facebook Live, just type it there. I see we have a whole bunch of people watching. This is really fascinating. And let's see, we've got one more coming. Okay, our last question of the day is from a caller. Your phone number ends in 3341. Hi there. Who's this?
Amy,
Hey, who is this?
this is Mike.
Hey, Mike. I love hearing your voice too. What's your question, sir?
Yeah. Well, I just had a question about you were saying the proven track record with your team. First of all, how do you assemble a team, and how many people and what skills should they have to be on the team?
Got it. Well, you know what? The assembling a team. Okay, so for everybody, in case you didn't hear the question, it was how do you assemble a team? What skill set should it have? You know, let's talk a little bit about that. So the team is really important if you're looking for investors, okay? If you're not looking for investor funds, your team doesn't have to be as deep. If you're looking for investment money, usually you're going to want to see somebody on the sales and marketing side of the product, somebody who's going to be managing some of the logistics, like an operations manager would be the second person. Where I see most people be really lacking in their team when they're pitching is anybody on the sales and marketing side. They build out all the technical people, the production, all that stuff, but they've got nobody in place that's going to sell or that's going to be responsible for marketing it. So that's one to really pay attention, because that's consistently been a problem with some of the pitches that I see when I'm with an investor group and people are pitching us. So how you assemble the team is you want to look at what's the business model you want to have. Are you trying to license the product? Are you trying to sell the product? Because again, that'll lead you to who should be on the team. If you're licensing it, then you're probably going to need maybe you, a licensing agent, and an attorney would be the team. If you're trying to sell the product, you're going to look for somebody to manage the factory. Could be a sourcing agent, could be the factory themselves, and you're going to run the management of it. And then you probably want somebody like an operations manager or a really good admin assistant, and then somebody on sales. And if that somebody right now is you, that's fine. Just pay attention to, it's really easy. If you're not comfortable selling, it's really easy to just not do it. The other person, if you're starting out in your product, you want to have packaging or branding done. That's going to be a graphic designer or a branding expert. So is that helpful, Mike?
Oh, yes, it is. Thank you.
You're welcome. Depends on what your model is, what your team is going to be configured like, okay? The other person that's on a team for an investor is usually some kind of corporate attorney, so that the investors know that the stocks are being granted properly. But that can be gotten around right now by using a service like eShares. So really great service that's way less expensive than an attorney. Okay?
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. And we've got some things that we're sending over to you too this week. Okay?
Oh, great.
Cool.
All right.
Okay. So I will talk to you soon. Okay, Mike?
Okay. Look forward to it.
Okay. I'm going to mute your line for your privacy, sir. Okay. So with that, everybody, we're going to wrap for today. We'll be back in 2 weeks. And if you have a topic suggestion, feel free to post it as a comment in the Facebook page. Jeff watches those. And if you're on the phone line and the webcast, you can just send an email over to Troy, Troy, @ products2profits.com. So that's products, P-R-O-D-U-C-T-I, sorry, let me just start over. Troy at products, P-R-O-D-U-C-T-S, 2, which is T-O, and then profits, Profits.com. And he'll take our topic suggestions and put them all in the mix for you. With that, everybody, have a really good 2 weeks and have a wonderful 4th of July. I think that's coming up before we talk again. So with that, everybody, bye for today.
The conference is now
So
complete.
everybody on Facebook, I'm so glad that you joined us and that you got to watch in, see live, and say hello. So please share this with people if you think that it'd be useful for them. And Anya Linder's on the line. Anya, I saw that you took advantage of the bonuses that we've got going right now. Wonderful, wonderful thing. For anybody who didn't catch that email, the bonus of us creating a sell sheet for you ends today at 6 o'clock. So check your email if you're on our email list. If you're not on our email list, you should get on it because that's where we send all the reminders and call information. But the sell sheet creation is still an active bonus till 6 o'clock today if you sign up as a consulting client or continue with a consulting agreement that you have. So you can replenish hours and get them, or you can become a client. So everybody, thank you so much. It's always good to be connected to you, and just lots of blessings for the best day and fabulous week. So with that, everybody, see you next time.